What are the odds of being struck by lightning and surviving? Scientists say the chances are roughly 1 in a million. Now, what if I told you someone survived it 7 times? You'd probably call it a myth, a tall tale, or a horror movie script. But this isn't folklore. This is the true, documented life of Frane Selak, a quiet music teacher from Croatia whose entire existence became a long, drawn-out battle between fate and death itself. Frane Selak was born in 1929, in a region that would later become modern-day Croatia. His early life was completely unremarkable. He wasn't famous, he wasn't powerful, and he certainly wasn't wealthy. He loved music, became a teacher, and lived a simple, quiet life. Nothing about his childhood even hinted that he would one day become one of Europe's most talked-about survival cases. Yet, from his early adulthood onward, disaster seemed to follow him like a shadow, always close, always threatening, but somehow never successful. The first sign that Frane's life was destined to be different came in the early 1960s. He was traveling by train through a mountainous region during a harsh winter. Snow covered the tracks, and the weather was unforgiving. Passengers sat quietly, completely unaware that their routine journey was about to turn into a full-blown nightmare. Without any warning, the train derailed. Metal screamed against metal as carriages flew off the tracks and plunged into an icy river below. The impact was brutal. Windows shattered instantly. Freezing water rushed into the train cars. People screamed, panicked, and tried to escape as darkness and cold swallowed them whole. Many passengers drowned, trapped by twisted steel and the crushing weight of the water. Amidst the chaos, Frane Selak was thrown violently from the train, striking his head and losing consciousness. When they kameto, he was being pulled from the freezing river by rescuers. He had a broken arm and severe hypothermia, but he was alive. Dozens of others were not. Most people would consider this a once-in-a-lifetime miracle and assume such a horrifying danger would never happen again. Frane returned to his life, believing the worst was finally behind him. He was terribly wrong. Just 1 year later, Frane boarded a plane for what was supposed to be a normal flight. There was no storm, no warning signs, no sense of impending danger. But midway through the flight, disaster struck again. The aircraft suffered a sudden, catastrophic malfunction. One of the doors blew wide open while the plane was thousands of feet in the air. The cabin depressurized instantly. Passengers screamed as a deafening wind roared through the aircraft. In that terrifying moment, Frane Selak was torn from his seat and sucked out of the plane. Anyone witnessing this would assume instant death, but fate, or something else, intervened in a way that simply defies logic. Frane fell onto a snowy mountainside, landing in a thick, dense haystack that miraculously softened his impact. He survived the fall. The plane crashed shortly afterward, killing many of the passengers on board. Once again, Frane Selak lived. Doctors were completely stunned. Journalists began to hear whispers of a man who refused to die, but Frane didn't seek attention. He just wanted to go back to teaching music, to live his quiet life. Yet death was far from finished with him. Then came the lightning. The first strike happened during a storm while Frane was outside. A bolt of lightning hit him directly, sending a massive jolt of electricity through his body. Witnesses said he collapsed instantly. His heart stopped briefly. His skin was burned. Medics who arrived on the scene believed he would die. But once again, Frane survived. He recovered in the hospital and returned home, scarred but alive. Now, many survivors of lightning strikes never experience it again. It's a one-in-a-million event. But Frane Selak did 6 more times. Over the years, lightning struck him again and again and again. Once while he was standing outdoors, once during a storm near a hill, another time while he was just walking. Each one of these strikes should have killed him, and each time he survived with burns, nerve damage, and other injuries, but never death. Medical professionals couldn't explain it. Scientists later suggested that maybe Frane's body conducted electricity in a unique way that prevented fatal damage. Others argued it was nothing more than impossible, astronomical luck. The local people began to fear storms whenever he was around. Some joked nervously that lightning literally followed Frane wherever he went. Others flat out refused to stand near him during rain. Children in his town whispered stories about him, wondering if he was cursed or perhaps protected by some supernatural force. Frane himself hated the attention. To him, this wasn't luck, it was exhausting. He was living with a constant, gnawing anxiety. But lightning wasn't the only threat in his life. In another terrifying incident, Frane was driving his car when it suddenly caught fire due to a fuel pump failure. Flames spread rapidly from under the hood. Thick smoke filled the cabin. Frane barely managed to escape before the entire car exploded just seconds later. The blast was so powerful it shattered nearby windows. And once again, he walked away alive. Years after that, Frane was traveling on a bus when the driver lost control. The bus swerved and plunged into a river. Water rushed in. Passengers drowned. Frane escaped through a broken window and swam to safety. Death had missed him yet again. By this point, Frane Selak's unbelievable story had spread all across Europe. Newspapers started calling him the unluckiest man alive. Others called him the luckiest. He rejected both titles. He didn't feel lucky at all. He lived with constant fear, knowing that ordinary moments, a drive, a trip, a storm could turn deadly for him without any warning. The 7 lightning strikes, in particular, continued to fascinate researchers. Surviving 7 is almost unheard of. Statistically speaking, Frane's life should not have happened. Yet there he was alive, aging, teaching music, and quietly defying every law of probability. Then, in one final twist that absolutely no one could have predicted, fate decided to do something different. Late in his life, after decades of surviving disasters that killed so many others, Frane Selak won the lottery. A huge jackpot. The media swarmed him all over again. Headlines spread like wildfire. People expected him to finally live lavishly, to enjoy the fruits of his impossible luck. Instead, Frane surprised everyone. He gave most of the money away to friends and family, keeping only what he needed for a simple life. He said that wealth brought him no peace. Surviving everything he had gone through had taught him that life was fragile, temporary, and completely unpredictable. Frane Selak passed away in 2016, in his late 80s. He didn't die in a storm. Not in a fear, not in a crash. He died of natural causes, the one thing that death had tried and failed to deliver for decades. His story remains one of the most unbelievable survival cases in modern history. Skeptics still question some of the details, but official records confirm the accidents, the crashes, and the lightning strikes. There are simply too many events, too many witnesses, and too many narrow escapes to dismiss it all as coincidence. So what was Frane Selak? Was he cursed, constantly placed in situations where death waited right around the corner? Or was he protected by something unseen, something powerful? Science offers theories. Faith offers explanations. But no single answer can fully explain how one man could escape death so many times against such impossible odds. One thing is certain. Frane Selak's life is a stark reminder that survival is sometimes beyond logic, beyond statistics, and beyond all reason. And the next time you hear thunder rumbling in the distance, remember there was once a man who faced it 7 times and lived. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more unbelievable true tales. See you next time.